Well, hello, and good morning to you too. It's the time of year where I'm putting my raised beds to rest for the season. Do you know that my rooster has been extremely silent all morning long until the camera started? He's a bit of a diva. As the season comes to a close, I am starting to put my raised beds to rest. I do that by topping it off with a bit of compost. Raised beds have a tendency to settle over time, and if you try to fill that up with bag soil, it's going to cost a small fortune. I also don't find that bag soils have, thank you Frodo, that much nutrients. I'm going to move, or the rooster is going to drive me nuts, and there will be so many jump cuts, this will be a very hard video to watch. Okay, I think we're far enough away from my rooster now that he won't be interrupting us. So, there are a lot of YouTube videos out there on composting, and some of them try to make it a little bit complicated, and it's really not. I will get into the ease of composting here in a few minutes. However, I think that if we're going to talk about compost, one of the first things we need to know is why we're doing this. There's a ton of great reasons to compost and a lot of benefits to doing it. One of the greatest reasons is it gives you something to do with all of your waste, your grass clippings, your fallen leaves in the fall. I see a lot of people burning those, and it drives me nuts because there's just a ton of nutrients in those leaves that is just going up in smoke. By composting those ingredients, we're locking up the carbon, which we hear a ton about. And as it breaks down over time and you're adding that to your garden, now you're taking those nutrients, everything that was left in those ingredients, and now it's going to feed your plants and to feed your soil. Adding a top dressing of compost to your garden beds will actually hold in the moisture, and as the organisms kind of eat what's left of your compost, that's going to break down and feed your plants and make those nutrients more bioavailable to your plants. This is my native soil. It's just sand. There's nothing to it. Sand doesn't hold on to anything. And it was really easy to tell the first year that we lived here and I grew tomatoes that sand was garbage. Blossom end rot was the very first symptom, and kind of told me that I really needed to work on the biology and the nutrients in the soil. And it was a challenge the first year to get enough organic matter together. I had to do a lot of chop and drop in order to just try to cover up the soil while I added as many organic amendments as I could. But year after year, adding more compost has done wonders for my soil, and let me show you the difference. In this section of the garden, I have been working for 5 years on the soil. There's less weed pressure. I have, other than a little powdery mildew on some zinnias, which is to be expected, I don't have any pests or diseases. And this area is nothing but weeds. Now there's some flowers in there that are trying. I can zoom in for you. There's some flowers in there trying to thrive, but it is so overtaken with weeds. I have grasshoppers galore in there as well as some other pests. And the plants just aren't doing as well because I haven't had a chance to really work on this section of the garden. And the weed pressure has been something I just cannot keep up with this year because the soil wants to be covered. It doesn't want to be bare. So if there's a bare spot, all the weed seeds just start germinating like crazy. And before you know it, you have the mess that I just showed you. Now remember that I said composting is not that difficult? This is a perfect example. This is just an aged pile of wood chips. And I can show you how it's breaking down over time. It's a little bit noisier over here. Hopefully you can hear me, but here I'm in the woods. No one's turning anything. The trees simply drop the leaves down every year and they just create a thick mat and biodegrade over time. As a matter of fact, there is a good 8 inches between the pathway here and the forest floor, because that's how much has built up over time, and it's just been created by the trees with no human intervention. There wasn't the perfect ratio of browns and greens. You didn't have to add wood ash or anything else. There's been trees and sticks falling down and degrading over time, and nature took care of itself. Do you see the height difference? I mean, this is where we're at before we get up into the woods. And that's a good 8 to 10 inches of height difference. So you can see here as I was turning this pile, it's already starting to look very dark. And you can see some, obvious pieces of carbon. But this is already breaking down. The thermophilic process is over. Now it's time for the worm. I'm flipping it one more time just to put a little bit more air into there. Make sure my moisture is right. But again, there's no wrong way to do this. I don't put dairy or meat in here. I do put eggshells. But that's it. Maybe once in a while some wood ash. And that's as complicated as it gets. This is grass, weeds, leaves, and kitchen waste, organic kitchen waste like leftover tomatoes and lettuce. Now here I have a 3-bay setup, and ideally it would be brand new compost, flipped back and forth until it was pretty much finished, and then into my finished area. But that never quite happens. The first bay will get completely full and I'll have no more room, so I'll start putting things in the second bay, and then they end up getting mixed, and then I'll start a brand new pile. Right now, this pile is at about, 92 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's probably time for me to flip this pile. I think it needs a little bit of moisture. It's been extremely dry this summer, which is getting typical. Your soil is a living, breathing thing, and if you keep feeding it, it will feed you back. You'll have healthier, happier plants, less pest pressure, less disease, and overall an easier time gardening. Now, in all honesty, I hate turning a compost pile. I've had lower back surgery, so anytime I'm doing any shoveling or lifting, it gets a little nerve-wracking for me. I'm always worried I'm going to hurt myself again. But take smaller shovelfuls or forkfuls, and that's kind of how I deal with it. It just takes me a little bit longer. It's not that complicated. All you need to do is take your waste, greens, browns, whatever you have. You'll find in the fall you have a ton of brown, and in the spring you have a ton of green. That's just how it works. But as you can see from the wood chip pile, which is all carbon, and the woods, which again, pretty much just all carbon, it happens naturally. You can help it along by turning it, maintaining water content, and not letting it go anaerobic, which is without air. Turning it and reintroduces air into the pile. You're going to end up with a third of what you put in there. So say you had 9 buckets of organic matter that you put together for your compost pile. You're only going to wind up with like 2 or 3 if you're lucky. But there's one more kind of lazy way to compost, and that is simply chop and drop or pull and drop. Your weeds that you're battling, especially initially, you can pull those weeds up and simply lay them on top of the ground. Make sure the root's exposed to the sun. It helps kill it. But especially if you do this when there's no rain coming, it will stack up and degrade over time. The earthworms will come in and munch it down, and they will leave you worm castings, which is a great additive to your garden. So if making piles and turning piles is not your forte, you can simply just cut your weeds down and do it that way. I will caution you, though, you don't want to put big stacks of freshly cut grass around your plants because it will burn them. A pile of grass is going to heat up, get too hot, too much nitrogen. It's not good. So don't do it that way. But you can sprinkle a light layer around on the ground, and absolutely that will benefit the plants. It'll cover your ground, give the roots much needed shade, and that'll have you well on your way to your first step composting. I hope I've kind of demystified composting for you a little bit. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. In the meantime, like this video if you like this video, and don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, keep growing strong. Hello, and good morning to you too, to rest for the season. Do you know that my rooster has been extremely silent all morning long until the camera started the season? There's beds will settle and the soil will just nutrient dense. Shut the I'm putting my raised beds to rest for the season. Can you be quiet? Please?